Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. Everybody's doing well after a great weekend, good weather, good sports. I'm slowly on the mend. I returned to the mic yesterday. After a few days battling a cold, my voice is starting to sound somewhat normal. I sounded like John Goodman in the Big Lebowski for a few days, but I'm on the mend, and that's a good thing. And lots to dive into today. This is the first of two podcasts I'll be recording this afternoon. The first talking about yesterday, NFL Sunday. The NFL, there's so much material that I can't get to the other sports. And I just said the NHL is starting. We got baseball, great UFC card over the weekend, the Ryder Cup in golf. So I'm going to touch on all that in a second podcast that I'll record later today. So both will be available later this evening into tomorrow. So for all you listeners out there, there'll be two podcasts for you to dive into tomorrow. And there's some programming news and notes. Thursday night, I'll be joined by my good buddy Ben Murray. Joined me 2 weeks ago now, but he's a big Patriots fan. The Patriots are playing Tom Brady and the Buccaneers this Sunday night at Gillette. Tickets are going for as much as a Super Bowl. This game is huge. Both teams coming in following a loss, which I'll get into in just moments. But we'll talk about that game. We'll talk about the NFC West that's getting more and more intriguing. So that's going to be Thursday. A week from Wednesday, my buddies Casey Ward and Seamus Fillmore, my co-hosts on the Breaking Bad podcast, will join me for an NHL season preview where we will talk about all the major stories, player movement, where we see teams going, predictions for the season. We'll give our top 10 players in the game right now, which is always fun. Arbitrary, of course, but my list, of course, is correct. But we'll get into all that a week from Wednesday. We're approaching episode 200. I'm really excited. I'm proud of that. So I got some things in the works for that. So we'll see what I can come up with. But it'll be fun. But yeah, that's on the horizon. So nothing but positive here to the point. We got football in full bloom. We got the last week of the MLB season, which is going to be just chaotic. NHL season starts a week for 2 weeks tomorrow. You got basketball right around the corner. So this is when all the sports are back. COVID, it's hitting us right in the face here in New Brunswick. But in the States, which is where seemingly a better place to live right now, it's a full go. And, we're going to see all these take place at the same time. I can't wait. If you're a Toronto Blue Jays fan, it's obviously a big week. You get 3 against New York Yankees starting tomorrow, which I'll dive into the second podcast today. But so lots happening. But yeah, good things happening. To the point, as always, you can interact with us on our social media channels, Facebook, IG. And I believe next Wednesday with Casey and Seamus, I'm going to try to do that one live. So I'll let you guys know as I get closer to the date what time we'll go live, likely in the afternoon or early evening. So join in on the conversation. We'll go live, the three of us. You can get in the comments section, leave us your thoughts. And you can hear our top 10 rankings. You can crush me for certain players that I have. Maybe you don't think they should be that high. We love to hear your opinion, your criticisms, and as always, your voice is always heard here on To The Point. So feel free to join in on the conversation. But this weekend, a lot happening. Like I said, college football, UFC, baseball. But on Sunday is the NFL's day. Always will be. And sports are always evolving, changing. Teams progress. Some get better. Some get worse. If you're the Detroit Lions and New York Jets, things seem to remain the same. But there's one thing that never changes in football. And that's if you turn the ball over you are going to lose football games. And it doesn't matter if you have the best player in the game, if you have the best tight end, if you have one of the best wide receivers. You turn the ball over 4 times, and that leads to 20 points on the opposition. More often than not, you're going to lose the game. And that was the case for the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday. A miserable first half where they had a turnover on their first 3 possessions. A pass from Patrick Mahomes that was behind his receiver, gets tipped in the air, intercepted by Asante Samuel Jr. Then a fumble by Tyreek Hill, recovered by the LA Chargers. Then for the second game in a row, a fumble from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. These 3 turnovers led to 14 points. Gave the Chiefs, they're down in a big hole, 14-3, but they battled back. In the second half, we saw vintage Patrick Mahomes, where Travis Kelce was his man, who caught 7 passes for 103 yards, where he was finding guys like Byron Pringle, where they actually resorted to the run game, where Clyde Edwards-Helaire ran for over 100 yards yesterday. But you have the lead, you go back and forth, but eventually you turn the ball over enough, it's going to come back to haunt you. And with 1 minute and 56 seconds remaining on a 3rd and 8, desperation, Patrick Mahomes overthrew Travis Kelce, intercepted by the Chargers, and they go on to score a touchdown and ultimately win the game. But you look at this season, and it goes full circle for me. The first primetime game of the season, we had the Ravens. Ravens play the Raiders. They turn the ball over 3 times. They lose. Ravens, heavy favorite to win that night. On the road, but still a heavy favorite. They lose. Then we have the Chiefs and Ravens play the next week. How many times did the Ravens turn the ball over? Twice. But when did the Chiefs turn the ball over? Twice in the 4th quarter. And yesterday, the Chiefs turned the ball over 4 times. The Chiefs are still one of the best teams in football. I mentioned they have the best quarterback. They have a loaded roster offensively. They have a great defensive player in Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, at safety. But there just seems to be something missing. Now, I don't think it's the narrative that the NFL has figured out Patrick Mahomes. Okay. I heard that week 1 about Lamar Jackson. Has the NFL figured him out, or is he still running for 100 yards a game and winning games? I don't know. Might win the MVP. But the NFL, I mentioned last, it's a team sport through and through. We can talk every week about quarterbacks. We can talk about Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford and Mahomes. But what does it come down to? Who has the best team? Who capitalizes on opportunities? What happened on the two fumbles? A man forced the ball out. Ty Boston punched the ball out of Clyde Edwards-Helaire's hands, recovered by the Chargers. That wasn't because of the quarterback. That was a defensive player, unknown guy to 95% of the NFL world, made a play. That's being part of a team. Defense still wins in the NFL. It was proven yesterday. Does the offense have to capitalize on the turnovers? Yes. But if you tell me yesterday that the Chargers and Chiefs go head-to-head and the Chargers do not force 1 turnover and they win that game yesterday, I'll tell you, yeah, you're smoking some really good crystal. Because it took 4 turnovers. The Chargers had 0, and they just won the game. They score a touchdown with 31 seconds remaining to go up by 6, 30-24. That's how close it was. If you have 4 turnovers, if you force 4, you commit 0, and you only win by 6, that's alarming to me. And I look at this game. And I do think Kansas City has their issues. I've talked about their defense, how it's like a sieve. They cannot stop the run to save their lives. Now, the Chargers aren't a great running team. I like Austin Eckler. He's more of a scat back, but he's not a traditional running back. He's more like Allaire, but I like him more than Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the Chiefs. But Justin Herbert played tremendous yesterday. 4 touchdown passes. Best game he's played this year. Week 1, he was just okay against the Washington football team. Last week against Dallas, he was part of the reason they lost. Threw a bad interception in the red zone. He didn't look like himself, and the Chargers did Chargers things and found a way to lose last week. And the Chargers sit at 2-1, but I don't have a whole lot of confidence in them right now. And that 4-0 on the turnover battle, and you win by 6, you should blow that team out. And I get it. The juxtaposition is, well, Patrick Mahomes is on the other side. Okay. He doesn't have the ball in his hands. His first 3 possessions, which strung into the second quarter, turnover. He had 3 points at halftime, and you were only up 14-3. The nail should have been in the coffin, and yet it was not. So for the Chargers, you got to take this as a confidence booster. No, I'm not telling them not to. But you only won by 6 points after winning a turnover battle 4-0? If I'm Brandon Staley, if I'm that team, that's not a big victory for me. Now looking at the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes has thrown 3 interceptions in 2 games. It's a fact. The one he threw to Kelsey late in the fourth quarter was an ugly one. Wasn't even close. He was desperate. He likes to take shots down the field. And the past 2 weeks, he's gotten burned doing it. And what really seems alarming to me is he only has a strong connection so far with Kelsey. Him and Tyreek Hill just seem off to me. That doesn't mean they can't find it, but they don't seem to be what they were last year, even the previous season. You could make an argument. You see the same thing in Green Bay, where Aaron Rodgers throws the ball to Devontae Adams, and that's it. Now, that worked out for him last night. But long-term, I don't love the Chiefs defense. I like a few of their players. Daniel Sorensen, number 49. Look out for him. I think he's a strong player. Honey Badger, Chris Jones can make things happen on that D-line. Other than that, there's a lot of squeaky wheels out there. Mike Hughes at corner. Oof. They don't get consistent pass rush. Justin Houston isn't around anymore. They don't have a great number 2 guy that can rush the quarterback. And how do you beat these really good teams? You get pressure. And they didn't get enough pressure on Justin Herbert yesterday. So I look at the Chiefs and say, you don't have a great D-line. You're not forcing turnovers on the defense. They did last week, pick 6. They didn't yesterday. And the defense is not good enough for this offense to put that team in poor positions where they scored 20 points off turnovers because they threw that late interception in the fourth quarter. That led to 6 points as well. So 20 points off turnovers. They lose the game 30-24. That's why you lost the game. 4 turnovers. But I'm not, panic or patience, overreaction Monday. I'm not panicking on the Chiefs yet. But what I will say is, after week 3, if you would have told me that the Kansas City Chiefs are last in the AFC West, I'd tell you were drunk. They are 1-2. They are last in the division. The Las Vegas Raiders and Denver Broncos are tied for atop the division lead, winless. Undefeated. They're both 3-0. Chargers, 2-1. The Chiefs haven't played the Broncos or the Raiders yet. They lost to the Raiders last year. The Broncos are better right now than they ever have been. They are still very much unproven. They've beaten Jacksonville, the Giants, and the Jets, which is basically like playing peewee football. But you can only play who's on your schedule. They get the Ravens next week. We'll see what that defense can do, and Teddy Bridgewater, see if he can continue his great play. But the Chiefs are last in the AFC West, and I think what it tells us going forward is it's going to be a dogfight this year. It's not a cakewalk for the Chiefs. They are not gliding into the number one seed in the AFC. The Ravens are still a very good team. The Browns, I have my worries about them. They didn't play very well yesterday, but I still believe in the Browns. Those two teams from the AFC North are very good. I believe the Raiders. I made my bet with Matt Wright that the Broncos have a better record. I have, buyer's remorse right now because I think the Raiders are playing some really, really good football. Derek Carr is showing people that he's a really good quarterback and that it wasn't on him. It was like having a terrible defense for the last 3 to 4 years in Vegas, and that's why they haven't won anything. So they're a good team. Then you look around. There's just good teams. Tennessee's a good team. They have their flaws, but you got Ryan Tannehill. You got Derrick Henry. You got good weapons. The Bills are a very good team. So the AFC is tougher than has been in a lot of years. In my opinion, the NFC has always been the tougher division. If you looked at Brady's past 2 Super Bowls, they haven't exactly been gauntlets. They were tough when Peyton had his Broncos, and you had Von Miller wreaking havoc and Shaq Barrett alongside him. But a lot of those years, they didn't have tough competition. When Andrew Luck was playing for the Colts, you knew the Patriots were going to smoke the Colts. It was a no contest. But now you have several teams I believe can compete for that divisional crown, and we'll see what transpires here. But again, I'm not panicking on the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe in Mahomes too much. He's too good of a player. They head to Philadelphia next week, who will be on a short week because they play Dallas tonight on Monday Night Football. But it does tell you that Kansas City has their flaws, and teams can take advantage of them if they do things the right way. Not to mention, after the game, Andy Reid collapsed. He was rushed to hospital. Thankfully, he is okay. Longtime great head coach with the Eagles for a while, now at Kansas City. He's going to be fine. But it's been a weird season so far for these Kansas City Chiefs. It has not been sunshine and rainbows for a team that normally, Patrick Mahomes had never lost a game in September. He's lost back-to-back games in September. And I mentioned the Chiefs, and, piggybacking off that, if somebody would have told me Seattle is 1-2, I wouldn't have believed it either. It wouldn't. If somebody told me they lost, Seattle, they lost to Tennessee week 2, that wouldn't shock me. But the way they lost is what's more alarming. They were up 30-12 in the fourth quarter, and Tennessee came back and beat them in overtime. You can't let that happen. You have that big of a lead. Yesterday, they're up 17-3. Minnesota scores 27 unanswered points. Minnesota. This is the team that finds ways to lose games. But Kirk Cousins threw it all over the yard yesterday. The offense for the Chiefs for the Seahawks couldn't get anything going in the second half. Russell Wilson was bogged down. Danielle Hunter came out to play in that second half, getting pressure, making things happen. And then you have Kirk Cousins spreading the ball around. Touchdowns to Justin Jefferson, to Adam Thielen, to Tyler Conklin. He had one of his better games in a long time for him. And now we sit where Seattle has the same record as Minnesota, and that's alarming. So 2 teams that have been perennial playoff, powerhouses. Russell Wilson has never missed the playoffs in his pro career. A decade-long career. He's never missed the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes has never had a losing record in the NFL as a starting quarterback. 2 things that have never transpired. Now, I'm not saying that the Chiefs are going to miss the playoffs or that Seattle will, but Seattle's lost 2 in a row, and now they have San Francisco. They're going to San Francisco this week, where San Francisco, yes, they lost last night in a thriller game against Green Bay, which we'll get to, but they've looked good over the first 2 weeks, in my opinion. Nick Bosa looks fully healthy. You guys, a man on a mission out there. And the NFC West is loaded. You can't to be 1-2, where 2 teams in that division are 3-0. It's almost crippling. You're going to need a lot of help. You need to go on a run to get back in this thing. Now, Russell Wilson can do it, but he's had his problems in Seattle for a long time. This offseason, they bickered about what to do moving forward. He talked about, gave the team 4 different landing spots he'd potentially go to. He's going to start to ticker up in Seattle if these losses continue to pile up. You have a fan base that's accustomed to winning, and they're not going to handle losing well, especially losing to a Minnesota team that just doesn't seem interested in winning. They just find ways to blow it. And yesterday, it was in the second half, it was not even close. Cousins could do whatever he wanted. The separation, Justin Jefferson was good with the ball. Kirk Cousins had all day to throw. That defense was Swiss cheese for Seattle. And on the other hand, Russell Wilson was running for his life, holding onto the ball too long, getting sacked, and it was just a long, long day for Seattle. So looking at these two powerhouses and see them where they're at after week 3, I wouldn't have seen that coming. If somebody would have said that to me in the preseason, I didn't have that. Now, game of the day, it was, the prelude to this Sunday's massive game between Tom Brady and the Buccaneers and against Bill Belichick and his former team, the Patriots, at Gillette. But before that great showdown in Sunday Night Football, it was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to Los Angeles, playing the Rams, a team that Tom Brady lost to last season on a Monday night. But this time there's no Jared Goff. It's Matthew Stafford. He's here in LA. They have been getting all the pub all off season long. Matthew Stafford is being called really the difference maker in LA between them being a good team and a perennial front runner to, win a Super Bowl. And you look at the game as a whole yesterday, to me, it was the most impressive game of Matthew Stafford's career. And I'm a guy that's been really hard on him, and I believe for good measure. You can tell me how good you are, but if you finish 6-10 every year, and you can lead the league in touchdown passes and yardage, and you're the best fantasy quarterback in the history of fantasy, whatever. If you don't win, that is what I'd like to call empty calories. It means nothing because you didn't win. In Detroit, he was a perennial 6-10. Been to 3 playoff games, lost them all. Blown out in a pair of them. He never won a division title. For how good he was always the second best quarterback in that division because you had Aaron Rodgers in front of him. He never even got close to being on Green Bay's level while in Detroit. Now, I also said Detroit is a dumpster fire of an organization. I think they're improving. They're still 0-3, but we've actually seen them put up a fight this year. You could make an argument they should have won, or they should have won yesterday. That's for sure. They got some tough luck, but that's where we sit. They're not a great team, but so Stafford comes to LA with Sean McVay, the Boyne genius, the great play caller. He had Jared Goff, got him to a Super Bowl, but Jared Goff was never the right guy for the offense. Goff was not the right fit. It wasn't McVay's fault. It was Goff who couldn't make the big throws. And you look yesterday, that certainly helped the argument that if people were making that, it definitely augmented their point because Stafford had Megatron in Detroit, who's a Hall of Famer, just inducted, one of the best receivers of all time, but he never had a running game. He never had a great play caller with him. His best coach was Tim Caldwell, who they fired after having an 8-8 season. That's Detroit for you. And I just looked yesterday. The best combination in football right now, receiver to quarterback, is Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is not the fastest receiver in football. He's not the fastest, probably not the best breaking off routes, but he's the best route runner, in my opinion. Him, Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs, they're all in that conversation. He was making Carlton Davis look like he ate a bucket of chicken, rubbed his hands all over his feet, and was pissed drunk yesterday trying to cover him because he was just all over the place. Cooper Kupp's route running skills are gross. This guy was making great. Carlton Davis was on the Pro Bowl last year at corner. Made him look silly yesterday. And it didn't matter. They said, okay, Carlton Davis can't take Cooper Kupp. Jamel Dean couldn't do anything either. The only thing Jamel Dean yesterday, the only thing he did was drop an interception. Right the breadbasket, bucket of chicken, couldn't hold on. Stafford was dicing the Bucs defense. The Bucs defense that was the catalyst to them winning a Super Bowl. It wasn't Tom Brady. It was that defense. That's why they won the Super Bowl last year. That's why they're this great team. They give up 34 points, but Stafford goes 27 for 38, 343 yards, 4 touchdowns on the day. 2 to Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's got 6 touchdowns in 3 games. We have Tyler Higbee caught another. And here's the special thing about this offense that I really like. Robert Woods, who's a great receiver, only got 3 balls yesterday. He'll get better as the season goes on. I like Higbee a lot. I like what, we saw in the first couple of weeks, this Rams offense, what they love to do is run bootlegs, where Matthew Stafford, it's play action and bootlegs are different. And that Stafford in a bootleg, it's a play action quarterback on the run. He's when you got the football, he's moving and he's making throws as he goes. And we saw yesterday, the Rams did some of that, but I think they know that this pass rush, if you get the quarterback outside of the pocket, then the O-line has to protect more. That creates tougher matchups for guys like Whitworth, for guys like Blythe. Keep Stafford in the pocket. You have a good offensive line. We can see what we can do today. Well, you have great receivers in Kupp and Woods. Higbee's an emerging tight end who I think will only get better with Stafford. Stafford's always been great with tight ends. But then you bring in the X factor, Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson is the ultimate X factor because he still might be the fastest receiver in football. He's 33 now. He's well past his prime, so to speak, where he was with the Bucs, with the Eagles, and he was a difference maker, special teams player. But what did he do yesterday? Third play of the second half, breaks the top off the defense, catches a 75-yard touchdown. He goes for over 100 for the day. You see him, he's just in the slot. He's so hard to cover. Catches 3 balls, but he might catch 6 balls every 3 games, but can it be a deep shot? Before, Jared Goff would be afraid to throw that ball, or he'd underthrow it or overthrow it. Stafford can throw that deep shot. He did it to Megatron. Cooper Kupp is not the guy who's going to catch the 75-yard touchdown. Deshaun Jackson is. They struggled to get him involved early. We saw Sean McVay in this game. How pumped he was that Deshaun scored that touchdown, that he was effective in how he used him. And this is week 3. A lot can change. A lot. We still have a lot of weeks to go here. But so far this year, the Los Angeles Rams have been the best team in football through 3 weeks. Now that obviously can change. It will change because the Bucs are still great, because the Chiefs can come back, because the Bills, Josh Allen plays the way he did yesterday, look out. But through 3 weeks, the Los Angeles Rams are the best team in football. Matthew Stafford, through 3 weeks, is the NFL MVP. No doubt about it. I don't even think it's that close. I would look at my front runners at this point would be Stafford and the guy who's going to be playing against next week. Next Sunday, we have Rams, Cardinals. Both teams are undefeated. Kyler Murray is playing great football. They had a tough day yesterday against the Jags, but they came out with the win. They have a great defense, 2 interceptions, including a pick 6 by Byron Murphy Jr. III. And we have 2 unbeaten teams. We also got Seattle versus San Francisco. NFC West is loaded, and 2 games next week that I cannot wait to watch. But for LA, I just talked about their whole offense. And for Tampa Bay, tough day for Tampa Bay. Because, and I mentioned it yesterday on the preview, countdown to kickoff. The winner of the game between Los Angeles and Tampa Bay would be won in the trenches. And I believe it was. Stafford had all the time in the world to throw the ball. Rarely did he get pressured. What did Brady deal with yesterday, which he rarely deals with? Pressure. Aaron Donald, the way they used him, where he's usually an inside rusher. They put him on the outside where they had an offensive lineman, and then Gronk had the chip block, but he came across, forced a fumble, gets a sack. But that Los Angeles Rams defense made a statement yesterday by just how physical they played. I like to point out 2 guys. Aaron Donald's an obvious one, but who I think will win Defensive Player of the Week this week, and I think if he doesn't, he's right there. Kenny Young, number 41. When you watch the Rams, look at this guy. This guy was just a bull out of a china shop yesterday, blowing people up. 2 plays in particular. One where Giovanni Bernard is trying to block him. It's a linebacker blitz. Gio Bernard's the third down running back where he's supposed to, catch the ball back. He's a scat back, but he's a small dude. Kenny Young's a big linebacker, just throws him to the side, sacks Brady. Like, that was just mincemeat. Just great play. And then in the midway through the third quarter, you got Ronald Jones trying to run. 3-yard tackle for a loss by Kenny Young. This guy was just a beast yesterday. Donald was a beast. Laying out, throwing down Giovanni Bernard. Giovanni Bernard took a big hit on his touchdown. That was an empty calories touchdown late in the fourth quarter. He gets dumped. But it was just a physical display. We see Gronk. He catches a ball for a first down, but he gets hit hard. Had to leave the game. Came back. But he can't be feeling that great today. This Rams team made a statement. This wasn't, okay, we just barely escaped. They wanted to put the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on notice. We're here. We're not second fiddle. This isn't last year. It's a new season. And my worry with the Rams is they're very top heavy. They don't have a lot of great reserves. They have injuries to guys like Kenny Young, to Jalen Ramsey. Their replacement aren't as strong as other teams where you have guys sitting out. Like, I look at Baltimore. It's a next man up mentality there, but they draft extremely well and they have really good finds. You don't see that as much in LA, but if this team can stay together, a couple things for sure. You have the best defensive player in football. I think you can make the argument the best player in football in Aaron Donald. I love him that much. The way he affects games, he's not a quarterback. He doesn't have the ball in his hand every play, but he scares the opposing team because what's he going to do? Every time, 3 guys have to take Aaron Donald, which you know what that means? Leonard Floyd, who's above average pass rusher, is alone on the other side against, I don't care who it is. Could be Tristan Wirfs, could be Donovan Smith. I like the odds of him winning that matchup against Tampa Bay. You also got the best corner in football in Jalen Ramsey. How often did Brady throw to Ramsey yesterday? Hardly, because he knows better. You're not doing that. Ramsey's going to intercept you. He hardly went to Ramsey was just, that's what great corners do. Terrell Revis, Ed Reed, these, Rod Woodson. Back in the day, what did they do? You hardly notice them, because you'd say, oh, he didn't do anything that game, because the quarterback would know better than to throw it to their side. Guess what's getting intercepted, or it's just a bad idea. He takes away one half of the field. Jalen Ramsey should have that much respect around the league because of how good he is at what he does. And you got Stafford, who's a top 5 quarterback. With this offense, it's hard to argue that he isn't. You know that. Now, this isn't doom and gloom for the Bucs. Now, it's a problem that Tom Brady was their leading rusher yesterday. Tom Brady ran 3 times for 14 yards. Ronald Jones, only 5 carries. Leonard Fournette, only 4 carries. They need to run the ball more. And they got down early, but it wasn't astronomical. You need to continue to run the ball. Use Jones, use Fournette, or get somebody who can, because you need to run the football. And, they'll have Antonio Brown back, but he's not a game changer. But, yesterday Brady threw for 432 yards. Those are empty calories because they were out of that game at the end of the third quarter. The game was over. That last touchdown drive might as well it was a nothing drive. But this doesn't mean that the Bucs, it's hardly from, people were saying the Bucs are going to go undefeated. I knew that wasn't going to happen. That was a stupid argument. Tom Brady super fans are making that argument. But we look ahead. The Bucs, I said this yesterday, and I like to be right, but I'm right a lot when it comes to sports, so no big surprise. That I thought both games yesterday were interesting games for the Bucs and the Pats, and I thought they both lose them. And they did. Because I believe subliminally, Tom Brady wanted to win yesterday. Don't get me wrong. He was pissed off on that sideline. Saw him the whole day, especially when he starts losing. He starts bitching to the refs, and he's all contrary. But he was pissed off at that game yesterday. Mike Evans was pissed off on the side. They were focused on their opponent. But you can't tell me in the back of their mind, they're thinking, Tom Brady's like, I want to go kick that asshole's, next week in Bill Belichick. He doesn't like Bill. Bill doesn't like Tom. And Mac Jones, it sure looked like he was thinking too much yesterday. He threw 3 interceptions. One, you could argue, wasn't his fault. One was at the end of the game in desperation towards the end zone. But it was his worst day as a pro. He had 16 interceptions. He looked like a rookie. And you also got to credit that Saints defense that we see them week 1. They win 38-3. Jameis gets the pub for throwing 5 touchdowns for good measure. But also that defense made Aaron Rodgers look silly. 2 interceptions, and they don't turn the ball over. They win. Week 2, they turn the ball over 2 times. What happens? They lose. Yesterday, they turn the ball over 3 times. They win. That's sometimes NFL is just so simple. It's win the turnover battle. Don't turn the ball over. Eat the clock. Be smart. Don't take unnecessary risks, and you'll win the game. No, in week 1, Jameis Winston threw for under 140 yards. And it was alarming because it's so little. In today's game, it's all about passing. Yesterday, Jameis Winston threw the ball 21 times for 128 yards and 2 scores. But you know what else? You know what happened? He won. They ran the ball 36 times yesterday, New Orleans. Jameis ran at 5. You had 6 from Taysom Hill, who had a rushing touchdown. And you had 24 from Alvin Kamara for 89 yards. And you had Alvin Kamara also catch the ball 3 times. So 27 touches for him. But it's whatever gets the job done. But for the Patriots, they're 1-2. Yesterday, I think, was a day that was, you're at home. You're playing the Saints, who are coming off a bad loss. But this was a good opportunity. This was a good experience for Mac Jones because he faced a tough defense. I think of 2 guys in particular. Cam Jordan is one of the best pass rushers in football, number 94 for the Saints. If you're ever watching, look out for Cam Jordan. Also, I think the leader, the backbone of that defense is number 56, Demario Davis. This guy is an awesome football player. He is all over the field, averages over 10 tackles a game. He breaks passes up, tackles for loss. He can cover running backs. He's just a really elusive guy, and I believe a game changer for this team. But, we've seen all the other rookies have terrible days. I'll get to Justin Fields. Trevor Lawrence hasn't had a good game yet. Multiple interceptions in every game he's played. Zach Wilson didn't score a point yesterday for the Jets. Trey Lance just gets put in spot duty, had a rushing touchdown last evening. But the rookie quarterbacks haven't had great outings. Mac Jones had 2 good ones so far, but he hasn't had to push the ball down the field. But yesterday, I look at their offense. I put a lot of it on Josh McDaniels. I liked when Mac was Mac. They allowed him to do his type of work. He even pushed the ball down the field a little bit yesterday, and I saw some good things from Mac Jones. So I do think he's progressing. He just ran into a really good defense, a team that was desperate for a win, and New Orleans got that. So kudos to them. But again, New England has the Bucs this Sunday night, and I believe they were. You're thinking Mac Jones, you want to make a name for yourself in New England. You want to put yourself on the map and say, I'm the guy here now. Forget about 12. That was in the past. You beat the guy that was doing it before you. Cam Newton had spot duty. You say, this is my team now. I'm the guy in charge. I'm the leader here. And you go out there and you take it. And to me, I look at it and I say the Bucs should be big favorites because the Patriots offense hasn't looked that great. Defensively, I don't think they haven't been bad. They gave up 17 to the Dolphins. They gave up, I think, like 9 to the Jets. And they gave yesterday 3 turnovers and they only give up 28 points. Not a terrible day from them, in my opinion. They give up 142 yards rushing. That was their big failure. 252 total yards. Patriots had 300 total yards, but 3 turnovers is what kills you again. So, but you look at the Bucs defense is not great. They got a lot of injuries. You got players who are struggling. Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, I mentioned 2 off the top. Their pass rush hasn't been great. Now you could look at that yesterday, that Patriots O-line had their worst game of the season. So you got to hope that they can recover enough to give them a fighting chance tomorrow. But it's not a terrible option. But I'm excited for this game. Me and Benny are going to talk about it on Thursday. But Mac versus Tom, you got Bill, who will be running that defense against his former quarterback, which is so interesting. They know each other so well. And believe me, Tom Brady wants to win every game he competes in, but he wants to win this game a little more than every other game on the schedule this year. This one means just a little bit more. And on October 3rd, I believe that's the date anyway, that is the biggest game of the week. But there's some great games coming up this week. I mentioned the 2 NFC West games. I have my complaints about how they schedule the 4 o'clock. Every 4 o'clock game is really good, but then the 2 o'clock, there's some stinkers in there. But both teams suffer a loss, and we'll see what happens this Sunday when the Bucs head to Gillette to play Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Last night, we witnessed, a classic game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers. The 49ers were a solid team for the first 2 weeks. Really efficient week 1 against the Detroit Lions. They let them back in the game, but they hold on for a victory. Week 2, their defense comes up big. Jimmy Garoppolo makes just enough plays to win them the game. They are 2-0. On the other hand, the Packers are embarrassed week 1 by a loss to New Orleans. Then they come back and show what they're made of in Detroit. But it was a game of, well, what are the Packers? They beat the Detroit Lions in Lambeau. That's what they should do. That's not an impressive victory. They need to make a statement. They need to have a statement win. And this was a perfect opportunity. Aaron Rodgers had lost 3 straight games at Levi Stadium in San Francisco. All the games weren't particularly that close. And you look last night, the 49ers played a damn good football game. They're down. They fight back. They forced 3 and outs. Their defense, which is hobbled, competed hard. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa looked like the old Nick Bosa, coming off a torn ACL. He looked like the guy last night, played a really good game for the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo, when needed, made big plays. A great touchdown pass to Brandon Ayuk. Going to George Kittle on his last drive of the game. Jimmy Garoppolo, for all the people clamoring for Trey Lance, this is something I do not understand, was not the reason they lost last night. They lost the football game by a game-winning field goal. But I'll get to Jimmy G in a second, a.k.a. porn star Jimmy, my buddy. But what was the fault last night? You kept – I look at a few things for San Francisco. Number one, Aaron Rodgers was only throwing the ball to Davante Adams. Why the hell did you not double him throughout the game? Leave Marquez Valdez-Scantling single covered. Leave Allen Lazard single covered. He caught the first pass of the game. They never caught one the rest of the game. The only other guys he goes to, okay, Tonyan. Keep him single covered. Fred Warner on Tonyan the whole game. That's fine. Aaron Jones, okay, deal with him. But again, he's a running back. But why was Davante Adams? Davante has caught 12 passes last night, had 22 targets. That's all that Aaron Rodgers was comfortable throwing to. He threw 261 yards. Davante Adams had 12 receptions for 132 of that. Lazard had a 42-yard reception on the first drive, to put it into perspective. So that's fault number one, is I look at this and say, you didn't double Davante Adams. You didn't stop him when you needed to. Fault number two, on the last drive of the game, you left 37 seconds of time left on the clock for Aaron Rodgers to work with. 37 seconds is too much for Aaron Rodgers with 3 timeouts. You can't leave him that much time, especially when he only needs a field goal. A touchdown's one thing. He needs a field goal to win, and he has maybe the most clutch field goal kicker in recent memory. Justin Tucker and Mason Crosby are the 2 guys that I would take on my fantasy. If I'm running a team, I want one of those 2 kickers. Crosby's made some big kicks in the playoffs, as has Justin Tucker, including yesterday. But I can't give him that much time. Garoppolo with a touchdown on that last drive, great. You get a touchdown on that drive, you feel good about it. You're up. Yeah, we got this, boys. But it's just too early. Juszczyk scores, gets a receiving touchdown. But 37 seconds. And you make a few stops. But again, on that last play, they go to Davante Adams. They get up and spike the ball. Mason Crosby makes a 50-plus yard field goal. He does it all the time. He made a 51-yarder on the first drive of the game. You can't give him that much time. And I get it. You need a touchdown to take the lead, but wait till the last second on the play clock. Let the clock drain down. Don't, I just look at it and say, settle down. Snap at the last possible second. Do not leave Aaron Rodgers that much time with the timeouts. That was the fault of San Francisco. I believe Green Bay was the better team last night. It was the best game I've seen them play this year, but you also look at it, they had a big lead going into the second half, and the 49ers fought back. 49ers' first drive was really impressive, the second half. Over 7.5 minutes, really creative play calling from Kyle Shanahan. We see Deebo Samuel get some end-around lead running. We see Trey Lance come in for a series. Kyle Juszczyk lining up under center, snapping the ball, just getting a quarterback power. Kyle Shanahan's so creative, like Matt LaFleur and how he runs his offense. They're very similar. They grew up together. But at the end of the day, you gave him too much time. And you can put that on Garoppolo in a sense, because he is the quarterback. He threw the ball. But also, as a coach, run a play that's not directly to the end zone. Have another check down pass where you force Green Bay to call a timeout, then take your shots. And you got it. In schooling, I took communications. the most important thing you can know about communications, above everything else, is know your audience. That's communications in general. I'm not going to crack a religious joke, right next to a church. That's not the right crowd to pipe off my atheist joke. If I'm at a bar, I'm more likely to make that joke with a few beers passing around because I'll probably get a few extra laughs. Probably not going to crack a religious or a joke like that in front of family. Well, some of my family. But again, it's just know your audience. And for San Francisco, for Garoppolo, for Kyle Shanahan, look who's on the other sideline. It's not Jared Goff. It's not Trevor Lawrence, a rookie. It's Aaron bleeping Rodgers. You don't think with 37 seconds he's going to get that ball in field goal range? He doesn't need a touchdown. He needs a field goal, and he has Mason Crosby, who just makes 50-plus yard kicks to win games. That's all he does in his career. So clutch. And so that's the fault last night. I think they played a really good game. I don't think they deserved to win the game, but they're in a position to do it. You don't always deserve to win the games that you win, but you get the breaks sometimes. And I see on Twitter throughout this game, because this was the primetime game last night in Sunday Night Football, that people were clamoring for the change to Trey Lance at halftime. And I turned on the sound for a minute, and I listened to Chris Collinsworth, and he talked about how it would be really hard to stop this offense, the way they run the football, how creative they do it with Debo and Brandon Ayuk, who are both such fantastic athletes at wide receiver. Trey Sermon, who's kind of just a down-the-hill runner, but if you get Mitchell back, some of the running backs, they'd be really hard to stop, especially with Trey Lance, because if you do a quarterback run pass option, he has the speed to take off with the ball. But Jimmy Garoppolo has only lost 9 starts as a starter. He's lost 9 games in his career. Last night, he threw an interception, but that interception, he threw the ball to Kittle. That wasn't a bad interception. That was just a better play by Jair Alexander. That was right in the breadbasket of Kittle. Really good throw, but Jair just made a better. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you have a great shot in hockey, but you have a guy like Vasilevsky who just sticks the mid out and it doesn't go in. That happens. And I could see it happening this year, but after 3 games of what we've seen, this is not the time to do it. People are not, I guess there's no, replacement option, but people are not saying, okay, let's get Russell Wilson out of the starting quarterback role in Seattle. He's 1-2. San Francisco's 2-1. We're not hearing that. After Russell Wilson put up 0 points in the second half yesterday. And I get it. You want to see a rookie. And I've been saying forever, Justin Fields should have started, which I'm going to get to in a minute here, which I still agree with. But Andy Dalton is not Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo is a guy who's gotten a team to a Super Bowl, who's lost 9 career starts as a starting quarterback. His biggest problem was injury prone. But last night, in that second half, he played really good football. And is he an elite quarterback? No. I'd say he's a great game manager. But that's not a slight. What was Tom Brady's first 3 Super Bowls? A game manager. Some quarterbacks should try to be game managers. Carson Wentz would have a better career if he was a game manager, and he'd probably be more successful and wouldn't have as many injuries right now. But some guys just can't do that. They don't buy into a system. But I just look, it doesn't make any sense to me to go to Trey Lance. The guy has hardly played in the last 2 years. He needs this learning. San Francisco's a good football team. If Trey Lance has shown signs of Patrick Mahomes, like he was behind Alex Smith in Kansas City, I would understand it, because I'd say, okay, San Francisco is an elite quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl, which I think they're really close to, but the injuries that they have are just so terrible. Last night, they lose Josh Norman, the guy they signed to replace Jason Verrett. He didn't play in the second half with a chest injury. They just continue to get more and more injuries. So the way they keep dropping, I'm not sure they're a quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl anymore, because their defense seems to be getting worse every week because they keep losing important bodies. But Kyle Shanahan, I'm sure, wants to start Trey Lance. I think he's made that perfectly obvious. He likes Trey Lance. But to me, after 3 weeks, Jimmy Garoppolo gives the San Francisco 49ers the best chance to win. And that's not long-term. They traded away a lot of draft capital to draft Trey Lance at number 3. But Alex Smith played one whole year with Patrick Mahomes on the bench. Patrick Mahomes went 10th overall. I get it, Trey Lance 3. Patrick Mahomes had way more reps at Texas Tech than Trey Lance has at North Dakota State, where he played one game last year, then opted out for the rest of the season. So continue to use Trey Lance. Run him with the football in the red zone. Bring him out for certain packages. But Jimmy Garoppolo should be the quarterback moving forward for San Francisco. Wouldn't shock me to see any day that Garoppolo is no longer the starting quarterback, but he's done nothing to lose that job so far. One mistake last night was scoring a touchdown too early in the last minutes of the fourth quarter. But he's played really solid quarterback, and Trey Lance will get his opportunity in this league, but he just needs to wait his turn. Now we go to the Bears and the Browns, where Justin Fields made his first start of his NFL career. And Andy Dalton has a knee injury. And it was Matt Nagy has been very transparent that Andy Dalton's his starter. Andy's our starter when healthy. Andy was the guy. Now the Bears O-line is terrible. We know that. Rookie quarterback who's athletic. But you think, there's ways to make it work. You have a bad offensive line, but get some quarterback power. Get some run pass option. Run some bootlegs. Play action pass. Run the ball with David Montgomery. You establish the run early. It's going to create opportunities for Justin Fields later. Now, did we see any of that yesterday from Matt Nagy? No. And prior to yesterday, the record for the number of sacks a rookie quarterback has taken in his NFL debut was 6. That was David Carr back in 2002 when he was a Houston Texan. And Davis Mills last Thursday, for the same Houston Texans, who got sacked 6 times by the Carolina Panthers. That was broken yesterday as Justin Fields was sacked 9 times by the Cleveland Browns defense, including Myles Garrett, who had 4.5 sacks in one game. A staggering number, a great player, but Justin Fields ran 1 run pass option yesterday. He dropped back the pass 20 times. It was just a simple, it was 13 out of 20 times to drop back the pass. It was all just dropbacks. No extra protection. 5-man protection on all 13 of those plays on a bad offensive line against Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett and that Cleveland Browns defense that's just ferocious. Matt Nagy, I don't know what that was yesterday. I don't know if he wants the kid to get hurt, but he's going to, because Myles Garrett is a freak of nature at the end. Is an all-pro. And you say, we're not going to give any help. Let's not bring a tight end to chip. Let's not do anything to help Justin Fields. Let's just lay him to the slaughter. How good is that going to go, Matt Nagy? Oh, wait, 9 sacks on a rookie quarterback you drafted 11th overall. Yesterday was flat out embarrassing. Now, I think the Rams can go to the Browns can go to the Super Bowl. They didn't play great offensively, even though Khalil Mack had a great game yesterday for the Bears. The Bears defense hung in there, played tough as hell. And it would be hard for me to find any motivation to play when you have a jackass for a head coach on the other side who's trying to hurt your asset. Jimmy, you're supposed to be an offensive mind. Pardon me. And yesterday's made me think, maybe Mitch Trubisky isn't that bad. It's this joke that you have an offensive coordinator who, what do we know about Justin Fields and Mitch Trubisky? They're both athletic. They both can run with the football. So let's try to do that. No, let's keep them stationary in the pocket. That's not going to work, especially when your offensive line, you have left tackle Jason Peters, who's 40 years old, going up against Myles Garrett, who is one of the best pass rushers in football. Stupid. A 40-year-old who looks like he's on ice skates against Myles Garrett for majority of yesterday. Just didn't work. It's just stupid. Matt Nagy is, again, I repeat, stupid. And this is just another example of bad organizations doing stupid things. You stay bad by doing bad things. Give him some protection. Get some run-pass option. Bring in Cole Kmet or Jimmy Graham to help block. Bring in an extra offensive lineman, 6-man protection. But no, it's Justin Fields' fault. And what do? You go to the stat line and be like, well, Justin Fields is clearly not ready to play. Bullshit. Maybe he would have stunk it up yesterday, but that doesn't tell me anything about Justin Fields. He went 6 for 20 for 68 yards. I could give a crap about that stat line. I could give a crap about it because his head coach basically said, hey, Myles Garrett, here's a lamb to the slaughter. Just go eat him. You just drop him in. And it was so frustrating watching that game yesterday. I have the games on the TV. I'm flipping between games on the red zone on my computer. And I was just dumbfounded by Matt Nagy. Like, Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, do you guys just want to get fired? Like, do you want to not be employed? Because that's what it showed me yesterday. If I'm the owner of the Chicago Bears, I'm looking around saying, what the hell was that? We had a quarterback second overall. He's gone. We now have the guys we drafted 11th, and we let him get sacked 9 times. And now they come out today and say, well, Fields, Nick Foles, and Andy Dalton are all in consideration to start next week. So that means any of them could start. And that, Justin Fields was so terrible last week. We don't know. We don't know how he could have played because we didn't get that opportunity to see having a damn fair chance. And Cleveland offensively did not play. I credit that Bears defense. Browns' first 2 drives, they get stuffed on 4th down. Khalil Mack played great yesterday. That secondary locked them up. Best thing I can say is Odell looked good. Baker didn't force on the ball. Odell was high and wild yesterday. But they found ways to score touchdowns end of the half. They only won the game 26-6. But the Browns have to continue to get better. They need to continue to find ways to win football games as we look ahead to week 4. They're going to Minnesota. So Minnesota's coming off a win, but the Browns, you need to win that game. You need to find a way to win that game. But you know what I hope now is I want to see Justin Fields play, but not for this head coach. I hope it's Nick Foles or Andy Dalton. They're playing Detroit, who aren't elite at anything, but they play tough. They'll play hard. And I don't trust that this offensive line can protect him or that Matt Nagy has a brain to figure out how can I protect my quarterback better. I don't want to see this kid, his career be over before it started. And that's honestly where I'm looking at this saying, this might happen for this poor young man. And I like Justin Fields. I don't root against teams in the NFL. Again, I don't root for teams, but I just watched the game, and it's infuriating to see a kid who you know is going to get slammed today on ESPN, who you know teams are going to say, well, this guy's not ready to play. And if you watch the game, which that's why you come to the point, you know that it wasn't all Justin Fields' fault. to be honest, yeah, maybe held on the ball a little bit long in a few of the sacks. But, oh, by the way, they ran a lot of comeback routes where the receivers didn't come back to the football. They kept running. It's not a go. It's a comeback. Come back. Anyway, oh, my God. The Chicago Bears were a disaster yesterday. And I just pray that this kid's okay because I want to see him succeed. I want to see him play for a decade plus. And the way it's going, he's not going to because of the incompetence that is the Chicago Bears. This just in. Earlier this week, Josh Gordon, former All-Pro with the Cleveland Browns, Pro Bowler, he's had his problems. He's dealt with substance abuse, addiction. He's been suspended twice by the NFL for breaking their drug policy. But he's went into rehab. He's passed the test. He's going to be reinstated by the National Football League. He's eligible to play actually this Sunday. And it's just being reported that he's planning to sign with the Kansas City Chiefs. So I mentioned how Kelsey seems to be the only guy connecting with Patrick Mahomes in the early season. Looks like they're adding another guy, Josh Gordon, to the roster. Last time we see he played in New England briefly. Was not the same guy. Wasn't as great in Seattle. But we'll see what he can bring to the table. Another receiver for Mahomes. Again, Hill, when he's going, is great. You got Kelsey, but he could potentially be the number 3 option for this team. Byron Pringle, Mecole Hardman have not really established themselves yet. So having the third option, the third head of the snake, so to speak, that could be Josh Gordon if he can find his game. So he might be in the lineup for the Chiefs when they battle the Philadelphia Eagles this Sunday. But looking at yesterday, Steelers' demise, it looks like the beginning of the end for them. Cincinnati is now 2-1. Great chance to go to 3-1 when they play Jacksonville on Thursday Night Football. But, Big Ben, offensive line, he can't move anymore. Threw the ball 58 times yesterday. That's not working. Their offensive line cannot pass protect. It cannot run block. And it's a disaster. Najee Harris led the team in receiving yards yesterday. He had 14 catches, the running back, for 102 yards. That's a problem. He had 142 all-purpose yards, but that's not going to work when you have to check the ball down that much if you're Big Ben. And it just looks like the end of an era for Pittsburgh. You lose to Cincinnati at home, that signals it. Joe Burrow only threw the ball 18 times, but had 3 touchdowns, 2 to Jamar Chase, the rookie receiver, who's having a great start to his career with 3 touchdowns in his first 3 games. The Colts dropped to 0-3. Carson Wentz played, but really didn't look like he should, to be honest with you. Going 19 for 37 for 194. Check down Charlie yesterday. A lot of yards in the last fourth quarter that were really, out of sight, out of mind. And the Colts are now 0-3. That's a tough. They had Seattle, Rams, and then Titans to start the season. Wentz is injured. They got Miami this week, which Miami's coming off an overtime loss, but that's not an easy game for them. So tough start for the Colts. Wentz is injured. This is really looking like a disastrous start to the season for the Colts. Titans, on the other hand, they have a big comeback. They respond with a victory. Tannehill, Julio Jones are starting to get connection. Derrick Henry runs for over 100 again. No surprise there. And like I said, you got Julio, spreading the ball around is Ryan Tannehill. That's the best thing about him. And I mentioned Colts would have a chance to win if they forced turnovers. They actually did. They forced 2. Tannehill was intercepted twice, but Wentz was just that ineffective. He shouldn't have been starting yesterday, in my opinion, but he did. Ravens, I forgot to mention this. The Ravens game, 4th and 16, with 10 seconds left. Lamar, incredible pass on 4th down, gets the first down, and then so they line up for a game-winning field goal from 66 yards. Previous record was 63-yard field goal from Matt Prater. Justin Tucker kicks the field goal, goes off the goalpost, so to speak, and bounces back. 66-yard walk-off field goal. Browns win 19-17, improved to 2-1. And the Lions, that's just so Detroit Lions, where they had the game 4th and 16 late, and they lose in such demoralizing fashion for Jared Goff, Dan Campbell, and co. And just they get set to face the Bears. The Ravens will play the undefeated Broncos, but the Ravens survived that scare. I'll get into this later in the week, but Josh Allen's performance yesterday against the Washington football team was truly impressive. But it was a great week. The Cats off tonight, week 3, where we have an NFC East showdown with the 1-1 Philadelphia Eagles will play the 1-1 Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott's looked phenomenal for the first 2 weeks. Jalen Hurts has looked so-so. He's still trying to prove that he's a starting quarterback. We have the Dallas Cowboys home opener. They look very solid through the first 2 weeks. I think the Cowboys will win this game tonight. I think they're the best team in the NFC East. The Giants are pathetic at 0-3. Washington I have less and less confidence. That defense is getting chewed alive every week. Josh Allen made them look. But yeah, I'll kind of do a divisional update later in the week, talk about that as well. So that's going to do it for the first podcast today. I hope you enjoyed my Bears deep dive, because that was just so frustrating to me. But I'll be back later to talk some NHL, baseball, college football, UFC, the works, Ryder Cup. So you'll hear from me later. But as always, thanks for the support. Enjoy the game tonight, and we'll talk soon.